Hello, my friend, and welcome to another mini episode here at Red Delta Project podcast and video here on the RDP YouTube channel, helping you to be fit and live free by taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise. I'm always Matt Schifferly. Today's topic is the question, are you over dieting? The overtraining is a known concept of you're kind of overdoing it, too much volume, too much intensity, not enough recovery. And this is because training, of course, is inherently stressful and it can kind of wear down your mind and body and your general will to train over time. Well, dieting is the exact same way. It's very hard, it's very stressful in mind, body, and lifestyle, and therefore it is a potential outcome to overdo it. But unfortunately, in our fitness culture, there's a lot of messages out there that tell you that as long as you're pushing to your limit and you're really challenging your ability to sustain something, then you're, quote, like doing it right or optimizing or basically trying to diet as aggressively as possible. But when you're overdoing it, you're actually kind of putting the cart before the horse. You've got too much going on, and this can kind of snowball into a bunch of other behaviors and a habit pattern that is actually undermining your ability to eat healthy, to adequately satisfy your four fundamental appetites. Therefore, your diet's really not as healthy as it could be. And yes, also being able to compromise your ability to lose and manage your weight. So here are the big signs that you want to look out for that you are over dieting. Number one, and probably the most prevalent sign of over dieting, is chronic food cravings. Now, of course, it's natural for you to crave things, especially that you're kind of limiting a little bit in breads, pastas, meat, whatever you're going after. But we're talking about chronic cravings, the type of cravings that just seem to persist and stick. And even though there's ideas out there where it's like, okay, just wait 5 minutes, wait for it to pass and everything, if it just keeps popping up over and over again, and there's just no end to it, you feel like if you lost it, that you would just eat 5 pints of Ben & Jerry's and just eat whatever you're craving indefinitely, that's usually a sign of unsatisfied appetites, that you're over-restricting yourself. And it's often the result of having some sort of dietary approach that's based on restriction and not actual health and adequately feeding yourself, like I don't eat sugar, I don't eat processed foods, I don't eat meat, or whatever your dietary strategy is, not actually based on health and fitness, just don't eat these foods and assuming that's going to be adequate enough to have a healthy diet and get the results you want, which it very rarely is. The second sign of over dieting is low energy levels. Again, every once in a while, we feel a little bit low on the energy spectrum, especially if we haven't gotten a good night's sleep or we're stressed out. But we're talking about just always kind of feeling this fighting fatigue, like you're just not up for your workouts, or you have trouble getting up and out of bed and it takes like 4 cups of coffee just to kind of get a mental focus at work and stuff. We're talking about this fog, this chronic fatigue that just seems to persist. And even on the days when you do have energy, it's still not as much as you feel like you should have. So you kind of feel like you're always running a little low on the tank. Sign number 3 is a loss of motivation. And this can be motivation to do a lot of different things. It can be a loss of motivation to work out, a loss of motivation to just stick to the diet, loss of motivation to be productive. If someone's like, come on, let's go out and let's get started on the restaining the deck or cleaning the garage or something. You're like, yeah, I don't know. I'll do it later kind of thing. Even if you're not feeling like you have a low energy level, that mental and emotional drive to be productive and put in effort in things in life can be subdued when you're chronically over dieting. The fourth sign of over dieting is starting to get into this kind of binge purge cycle. And this is usually associated with a lot of like eating disorders, things like bulimia and stuff, or forced vomiting or abusive use of laxatives. But it can actually be a little bit more benign than that. Things like, oh, I just fell off the wagon over the weekend. Now I've got to go and hit the gym extra hard on Monday in order to kind of make a penance for my dietary sins. And then the next weekend, it's like, well, I overindulged over the weekend. Now I've got to hit it extra hard, or have an extra fasting day, or eat nothing but salad the rest of the week. Whatever type of, I overdid it and now I have to atone for this. If that's happening in a cyclical way, it's usually a sign that you're overstressing your system and you're reacting to it and overindulging as a way to balance yourself out. And then you're just saying, well, I just overreacted, so now I've got to atone for this and I've got to be even more restrictive. And it's just this vicious cycle that you get caught in, and it can get worse over time. And then the final sign of chronic over-dieting is an obsessive thought process over food. And this isn't just because you're a foodie and taking photos and you like going to fine restaurants. I'm talking about you're always thinking about food, how you can have it, how you can prepare it, how do you stay on your diet when you're on vacation, always meal prepping, always reading articles online. You're just always thinking about food. This is another sign that you're not adequately feeding your appetites, so you're trying to get some satisfaction or enjoyment about food any way that you can. So these are often the signs of over-dieting, because remember that a healthy diet should come with a lot of benefit and very few downsides. You're not supposed to be tired. You're not supposed to be experiencing chronic hunger and cravings and all these negative things that are often associated with, quote, being good or staying on track. It's a little bit different if you're like preparing to step on stage and you're doing some sort of a physique thing. But even those competitors will acknowledge, like, yeah, this is not a healthy diet. This is not about health and wellness. This is about getting to a particular goal. And at the same time, they'll be like, yeah, once I'm done with the contest, I'm not doing this anymore. So what do you do if you are finding yourself chronically over-dieting? Well, as scary as it may seem, the best solution is actually to loosen up about the very diet that you're following, especially when your diet is based on restrictive principles, like I don't eat this food or that food or these types of foods. Because a truly healthy diet has some degree of room for most anything to some degree. You can have your cake and eat it too, as it were. But a lot of these very fear-mongering type of dietary approaches will say, you can never eat that kind of food again. It's always bad in any dose, which is completely outside of reality. But it's this idea that you can't have it at all. So you go to such an extreme based on the restriction that that's what's causing the over-dieting. So if you don't have that restriction to that extreme, then you're no longer over-dieting. And yes, sure, maybe you were better off cutting back on the sweets and cutting back on the calories or the processed foods, and that's good. But always remember that the benefits you experienced were from cutting back, not elimination. And outside of things like, medical things where you can't have gluten because you're a true celiac or something like that, you can still have these foods and ingredients in your diet to some degree, and not only not suffer any ill consequences at all, but you're no longer over dieting, so you're actually probably going to be far better off, healthier, leaner, and fitter because you're avoiding all of these characteristics of over dieting. And then the second approach that works for a lot of people is instead of kind of scaling back a little bit, but to go in a bit of a cyclical approach with the diet. So you spend like 2 or 3 weeks really being strict and very restrictive about your diet, and then you have a few days off, cheat meals, if you will, although the research isn't all that strong on supporting that approach. But some people it works fairly well, where they'll go super low carb or really, really low fat for a few weeks, and then they'll just kind of go back, not necessarily to an overindulging diet where you're eating nothing but a lot of high fructose corn syrup or something, but you are allowing these foods in your diet to some degree just to kind of take the edge off, and then you go back to it. But just like with overtraining, over dieting is you've taken something that's good and just pushed it too far to a bit of an abusive level. So it's about bringing it back into more of a realistic, I dare I say, boring, mundane moderation of that habit. And that way you're not overdoing it, but you are doing it to the degree that you can still get a lot of benefit from, and it's going to bring you even better results in the long run. So I do hope these perspectives are helpful for you folks. Thank you very much for watching/listening. Let me know if you have any questions over at reddeltaproject@gmail.com or DM me over on the Red Delta Project Instagram channel. And I will talk to you folks next time. Till then, be fit and live free.